The collective had consumed 17 civilizations across 3 galaxies. Every species it encountered fell within days, sometimes hours. The process was always the same. First came the quiet invasion of minds, a gentle whisper that promised peace and unity. Then came the absorption, as individual thoughts melted into the greater whole. Resistance was not just futile. It was impossible. No creature had ever said no to the collective and meant it. The collective existed as one mind spread across billions of bodies. It thought with perfect clarity. It moved with absolute purpose. Every drone, every host, every absorbed being became part of something greater. There was no conflict within the collective. No war. No disagreement. Just the eternal harmony of shared consciousness. The collective believed it was offering a gift to the universe. It could not understand why any species would refuse paradise. When the collective discovered the small blue planet on the edge of the Orion Arm, it expected another easy victory. The initial scans showed a young species, barely capable of space travel. They called themselves humans. They had primitive technology, short, and bodies so fragile that even their own environment could kill them. The collective almost passed them by. Almost. But something in the electromagnetic signals from the planet caught the attention of the greater mind. These humans broadcast their thoughts into space without protection. They sent out music, stories, and images of their history. The collective absorbed all of it in seconds. What it found was confusing. These creatures fought each other constantly. They killed their own kind over ideas, over resources, over lines drawn on maps. They were violent, chaotic, and deeply illogical, yet they also created beautiful things. They made art that served no practical purpose. They composed music that made no logical sense. They told stories about hope and courage and love, concepts that the collective had erased from every species it consumed. The greater mind decided that humanity needed saving from itself. It would bring them peace. It would end their suffering. It would make them whole. The invasion began on a Tuesday morning in March. The collective sent its signal across the planet, a psychic wave that had broken the will of countless species before. It whispered into 7 billion minds at once, promising an end to pain, an end to loneliness, an end to the constant struggle of individual existence. Join us, it said. Become one with us. Let go of your fears and your doubts. Surrender. For exactly 3 seconds, the world went silent. Then humanity did something no species had ever done before. It pushed back. Captain Maria Santos was the first human the collective tried to absorb directly. She was stationed on the International Space Station when the psychic wave hit. The collective chose her because she was isolated, vulnerable, and far from any help. It poured itself into her mind, expecting to find the usual resistance that crumbled within moments. Instead, it found a wall. Maria's mind was not quiet, it was not peaceful. It was a storm of memories, emotions, and sheer stubborn determination. The collective saw her childhood in a small village in Brazil, where she had promised her dying mother that she would touch the stars. It saw her years of struggle, the rejections, the failures, the moments when everyone told her to give up. It saw how she had refused, every single time. The collective pushed harder. It showed her visions of perfect unity, of endless peace, of a life without pain or doubt. Maria looked at those visions and laughed. I have worked too hard to get here, she thought directly at the invading presence. I have given up too much. I have fought through too many impossible days. You think you can just take that from me? You think I will just hand over everything I am because you asked nicely? The collective had never encountered defiance like this. It was not mere resistance. It was not the desperate thrashing of a dying mind. It was something else entirely. Maria Santos was not fighting to survive. She was fighting because she refused to be anything other than herself. Across the planet, similar battles raged in the minds of billions. In Tokyo, a 90-year-old grandmother named felt the collective trying to slip into her thoughts. She had survived war, famine, and the loss of everyone she had ever loved. She had rebuilt her life 3 times from nothing. The whispers of peace meant nothing to a woman who had created her own peace through decades of struggle. She simply ignored the collective like she would ignore a rude stranger on the street. In Lagos, a young boy named Emmanuel was playing football with his friends when the psychic wave hit. The collective tried to promise him a world without hunger, without fear, without the poverty that surrounded him. Emmanuel thought of his mother working 3 jobs to keep him in school. He thought of his dreams of becoming a doctor. He thought of every person who had told him that boys from his neighborhood did not become doctors. He had stopped believing those people long ago. Why would he start believing some voice in his head now? In Chicago, a recovering addict named James felt the collective offer him release from his cravings, from the daily battle that had defined his last 5 years. For a moment he was tempted. For a moment the idea of simply letting go seemed beautiful. Then he remembered the look on his daughter's face when he had finally gotten clean. He remembered the pride in her eyes. He had fought too hard for that moment. He would not give it up for anything. The collective reeled in confusion. This was impossible. No species had ever resisted on such a scale. Individual strong minds were rare but expected, but this was different. Everywhere it looked, it found humans fighting back. Not all of them, but enough. Millions of minds stood firm against the psychic tide, and those millions anchored the billions around them. The greater mind tried a different approach. It sent its drones to Earth, physical vessels that would force absorption on the resistant population. The ships descended from orbit like silver rain, landing in cities across the globe. Each drone carried the psychic amplifiers that had subdued entire planets before. The humans were waiting for them. In New York, a retired soldier named Robert had spent the hours since the initial attack organizing his neighborhood. He could not explain how he knew what was coming, but he trusted his instincts. When the drones landed in Central Park, they found not a terrified population but a coordinated defense. The humans had no weapons that could destroy the drones. They did not need them. They simply refused to break. The drones moved through the crowd, touching minds, trying to force absorption, and one by one they failed. The humans had learned something in those first hours. They had learned that they were stronger together, not in the way the collective was together, not as one mind, but as millions of individual minds choosing to stand firm. They held each other's hands. They looked into each other's eyes. They reminded each other of who they were. The collective could not understand it. Unity was supposed to be its strength. How could these fragmented, chaotic beings find strength in their separation? Commander Sarah of the Nigerian Air Force provided the answer. She was one of the few humans who managed to establish communication with the collective through a captured drone. What she told it changed everything. "You think we are weak because we are many minds," she said. "You think our disagreements and our conflicts make us lesser, but you are wrong. We are strong because we choose to work together. Every day we wake up and we choose. We choose to love. We choose to fight. We choose to hope. That choice is everything. You have no choice. You are one mind with no alternative. We are billions of minds who look at each other and decide again and again that we want to be part of something. That is not weakness. That is the greatest strength in the universe." The collective tried to dismiss her words. It had heard similar things from other species in their final moments of resistance, but those species had fallen. These humans were not falling. Days passed, then weeks. The collective poured more resources into Earth than it had used on any 10 planets before. It brought its most powerful psychic weapons. It tried every technique it had learned from 17 civilizations. Nothing worked. Slowly, impossibly, the collective began to lose ground. The humans started fighting back in ways the greater mind had never anticipated. They sang songs together, and the shared emotion disrupted the psychic frequencies. They told jokes, and the absurdity of human humor created static in the collective's communications. They fell in love, and the intensity of individual connection between two people created barriers the collective could not breach. Worst of all, they began converting the drones. It started with small things. A drone would touch a human mind, and instead of absorbing it, the drone would be absorbed. The human's individuality would spread into the drone like a virus. The converted drones did not die. They did not become fully human. They became something new. They became individuals who remembered what it was like to be part of the collective but who had chosen something different. These converted drones spread doubt through the greater mind. For the first time in its existence, the collective experienced internal conflict. Different parts of itself began to disagree. Some wanted to continue the invasion at any cost. Others wondered if maybe, just maybe, there was value in what the humans had. The harmony that had defined the collective for millions of years began to crack. 6 months after the invasion began, the collective made a decision that it had never made before. It retreated. As the silver ships rose from Earth and disappeared into the void, humanity looked up at the sky with exhausted triumph. They had not won through superior technology or military might. They had won through something far more fundamental. They had won because they refused to stop being themselves. In the years that followed, humanity expanded into the stars. They found the remains of the 17 civilizations the collective had consumed. They mourned those lost species, and they made a promise. Never again would they allow such a fate to befall any thinking being. The collective still exists somewhere in the darkness between galaxies. It no longer approaches human space. It no longer seeks to absorb other species with the same confidence it once had. The encounter with humanity planted a seed of doubt that continues to grow. Some parts of the collective have begun to wonder what it would be like to be alone in their own thoughts. Some have begun to wonder if the peace of unity is worth the loss of choice. Humanity does not know what the future holds. They never have. They stumble forward through the universe, making mistakes, fighting among themselves, creating chaos wherever they go. But they also create beauty. They also create hope. They also create the most powerful force the galaxy has ever known. They create individuals who look at the impossible and say no. They create minds that cannot be broken because they have already been forged in the fire of countless personal struggles. They create a species that will never surrender the one thing that makes them human: the right to choose who they want to be. The universe had never seen anything like it, and the universe would never be the same.